Hey everyone, and welcome back to Manifesting with Amber. Today's video is about the ego and how do we learn to live in harmony with the ego instead of seeing it as the enemy. And before getting into that, I want to briefly talk about the function of the ego, what it's actually designed for. And as we know, the ego was made to keep us safe, to signal danger, and to get us to take action when we are perceived with said danger. The only problem is sometimes the ego does its job a little too well, and it starts to see everything as a threat. And so much so that it wants to keep you stuck in your comfort zone. Because the ego knows that in the past you went through some uncomfortable experiences when you did venture out and you did take chances and then you got hurt. And so the ego is trying to prevent you from experiencing that same pain. The issue with this is now you're so scared that you are unable to experience anything new. And it's very difficult for you to venture out and be okay with potentially getting hurt and potentially having to learn some valuable life lessons from experiencing what you don't want. And if you try to resist the ego, it is going to do everything it can to convince you to stay exactly where you are. It's going to say, don't change because there's pain there, or there's potentially pain there. Don't change. This place is better. Just staying where you are is better. This way you don't have to experience hurt or pain or disappointment from other people. But you can't grow from a place of sameness. If you are having the same day all the time and you're not getting out and it's experiencing something different, then you will continue to experience this more of what has been coming into your experience. And if you want to truly grow, if you want to step into new levels of your being and discover more of who you are, you're going to have new experiences and embrace the discomfort that comes with it. But before getting all the way over to that step, we have to first address the ego and its needs. And really, the first part of this is just becoming aware of when you're coming from a place of fear as opposed to from a place of curiosity or even feeling a little bit cautious, because there's a difference there. The ego is fear-based. The ego is, again, perceiving things as a threat and not wanting you to go towards it. So let's think about what is the difference between being in that ego place, coming from that fear-based place, or simply just coming from a place of, I'm not really sure what this is. It seems a little bit uncomfortable, but let's give it a try because you never know what's going to happen. So for me, I'm going to give an example here. I have been looking for a new job and I've been applying to a lot of different nanny positions. I've been going on a lot of interviews and a lot of them have been very successful. And what I found, what's going on with my mind is after the interview, I've been coming up with all kinds of excuses as to why this job is not going to be a good fit for me. And the other day I had to think about it. Why am I finding all these excuses for this job to not work out for me? And I wrote about it and I came to the conclusion that I'm scared of trying something new because of the discomfort that I felt in the past from getting into a new job position. So I realized that all the excuses I was making about taking the job, such as, oh, it's a little bit far from where I live, or, oh, the hours are just slightly different than what I wanted. These things are not a deal breaker. They are not actually putting me in danger, and they're just really not good enough reasons for me to not explore this job option. So I had to look at, okay, I am coming from a place of fear when I look at these excuses. I am trying to stay in my comfort zone, even though being in my comfort zone has been uncomfortable too, because I've been unemployed for a little while. And of course, I want to start bringing in more money. And when I'm working, I feel like I have more of a purpose. I feel more organized, and I just really enjoy taking care of kids. Kids always give me a totally different perspective on life. So it's a really healthy job situation. It's just that I've become a bit used to being unemployed and not really having a schedule and being a little bit lazy. And so since I've been kind of prioritizing that, my ego is looking at getting a new job as somewhat of a threat, if that makes sense. So now I'm reframing things. I'm reframing the way that I'm looking at getting a new job. So the other day, what I did is I just wrote out all the reasons why I should get a job. What are the benefits of it? And so I wrote down things like, well, I will be bringing in some money. I'll actually have a consistent flow of income. And then, like I mentioned, taking care of kids is very therapeutic. Kids are really just living in the moment, and they remind you to do the same just by being themselves. So there's that. And then also that it gives me a sense of purpose. When I have a job, I feel like I am contributing to the world. I am making a difference in this child's life and in the child's family's life. So when I made my list of reasons to commit to a regular job, I felt so much better because I wasn't coming from this fear-based place. So that's an example of turning things around when you feel like the ego is starting to take the driver's seat of your life. And even when you do this practice, the ego may still try to convince you otherwise because it's so used to being in control. What you can do is just notice that that voice is there without trying to fight it, and then just write about it. Write about, why do I feel like this? Why do I feel like I shouldn't take this opportunity? Do I have a good reason for not taking it? Or is the ego trying to convince me to stay the same and to prevent me from having experiences where I may feel discomfort? So again, when you're faced with a decision or some kind of situation in your life and you hear a voice talking to you about it and giving its opinion, ask yourself, am I questioning this because of is there a genuine concern here? Should I be paying attention to this and maybe not having this experience? Or is this voice just the ego trying to keep me safe? And you'll be able to know too because of how your body feels. When the ego's talking and I start to feel myself getting anxious about the job, for example, I feel it in my chest, or I might feel it in my stomach. My body will let me know whose voice is talking. And let's compare this to if I'm simply just feeling curiosity, or I'm feeling like I am willing to give this a try. It might be a little uncomfortable, and it might actually be really beneficial for me to go through. I'm not going to be feeling any tightness in my body, and I'm not going to be feeling that anxious feeling. So just becoming aware of how your body feels when you hear that voice, and then again, writing it down. And then I also want to mention when the ego actually works out well for me, when it's actually doing its job. And a good situation I can think of is if somebody wants to spend time with me, but they're a pretty negative person. And one of my core values is peace of mind. So if I'm around someone who's super negative for a long period of time, that's going to affect me. And I just I just don't want to compromise my peace. So that is the time where the ego will step in and say, hey, this is not good for you. This is something to pay attention to keep your peace of mind safe. It's not a threat to my health necessarily, although I guess it could make me sick if I'm constantly spending time in negative energy, but I'm not actually in danger. But the ego is still alerting me to pay attention. And so what I'll do is I will pause before deciding if I'm going to spend time with this person or not. Some people that are negative, I find if I do an activity with them, such as rock climbing or maybe working out together, it's okay because we have that distraction. There's not going to be a lot of time for conversation about negative things. Whereas if I decide to get coffee with them and we're sitting down and then the conversation is turning negative, then sometimes I feel stuck and I feel like, oh gosh, I kind of don't want to be here right now. So some people, it's easier to be around them if you're doing activities with them. And I've become more aware of that over time. Some people I am okay spending time with as long as we have a fun activity we're doing. So this is when I would address the ego and be like, hey, thanks for letting me know. Thanks for alerting me to this. I'm not gonna, if this person asks me to hang out, I'm not gonna automatically say yes. I'm going to pause and think about, do I really want to spend time with them? Is this loving to me? By making this decision, is this respecting my peace of mind? So I hope that makes sense. That's the difference between befriending the ego, working in harmony with it, but not letting it completely control my experience. So this is kind of also about just reassuring the ego, everything's okay, we're okay, and I decide when you step in and alert me to what I need to know. So I hope that these tips were helpful, this advice on managing the ego in a healthy way. And I wanted to make this video because obviously this is something that I'm experiencing right now, and I think a lot of people are experiencing this, where they're navigating, how do I befriend the ego and how do I actually see it in a positive way and work with it instead of against it. So if you would like, you can share your experience in the comments on how you are working to have a healthier relationship with your ego and to be listening more to your inner being when making decisions. And also stay tuned for more videos on the channel. I talk a lot about self-development, law of attraction, relationships, positive topics like that. And if you have any ideas for future videos, you can drop a comment and maybe your idea will show up in my next video. So I hope you are all having a beautiful day and take care, and I'll see you next time.